Congressman, you sound a good game. What in the world were you and your 19 colleagues doing, torturing the speaker, your speaker designate, Kevin McCarthy? What,
Geraldo,
for your
it's
egos?
old news.
What?
They come and go, but when rules are established, they often can be endured.
Geraldo, let me step in here for that. Geraldo, wait a minute. Geraldo, hang on.
Geraldo's none too happy with Matt Gaetz. This is weeks after the whole battle over Kevin McCarthy and the speakership vote, which took an extra 15, 16 votes, something like that, to finally get it done. And Geraldo's been holding his fire, and so he gets Matt Gaetz's face in front of him. The battle continued as they were going over the problem. As he said, he was torturing Kevin McCarthy. I mean, when they're all fighting, it's hard to really pick sides, but let's go ahead and let them continue fighting. Sean Hannity jumped into this part about it, though.
Your speaker designate, Kevin McCarthy. What,
Geraldo,
for your
it's
egos?
old news.
What was that for?
What
did you hope to attain in that?
So first of all, I got some constituents in the military that could talk to you about real torture. I don't think sitting through 15 votes quite qualifies, but here's what we were fighting for. We believe that instead of having omnibus spending legislation that comes to us with only a few hours to consider thousands of pages and then vote on something that funds every agency of the government all at once, that we should take individual votes on appropriations bills. But when rules are established, they often can be endured.
Congressman, with your filibuster right now, you are portraying yourself to the American people as a thoughtful legislator. And yet the publicity that you get characteristically, almost inevitably, is flamboyant. It's confrontational.
Hold
it
on,
has no
Geraldo, let me step in here for that. Geraldo, wait a minute. Geraldo, hang on.
I make a substantive argument about changes to the process, and you call me flamboyant and confrontational?
Geraldo, he answered your question.
Geraldo, he answered your question. You're getting flamboyant and filibustery. This is the things that he was filibustering about, at least, and maybe some of these points some people could agree with. Let's watch what Gaetz was saying that had Geraldo so upset.
That's a concession we didn't have when voting began. It's one we earned by the time it ended. We also believe that when bills are considered, they should comport to a single subject, so I don't have to do what I've had to do in the past and vote on the farm bill at the same time you're voting on whether or not there's going to be war powers in Yemen. We also wanted open amendments, so Republicans or Democrats could offer germane adjustments to legislation, and everyone could take votes on these things.
I know it's tough, yes, but you got to choose a side. Matt Gaetz and his forehead, or Geraldo Rivera and his anger about torturing.
Side. Oh God, yeah. I have no idea. How am I going to choose a side right there?
I know.
It feels like Geraldo was just like waiting. He's like, oh, let me just like get my hands on Matt Gaetz, and then I'll really give it to him. And then it happened way after anybody is still talking about any of this.
Yeah.
It's like Matt Gaetz, he can't catch a break. He doesn't make it easy on himself, to be fair, but it's like he goes on Fox News. What goes on over at Fox News, though? There's just so many clips like this that come from Fox News, and you don't really see a whole lot of that coming from other networks. It's no wonder that their entire viewer base is always so freaked out and like stressed out about everything.
Well, this is the thing, and I think some of the points that Gaetz says they were fighting for and got concessions from McCarthy for are stuff that's worth fighting for. The clarity of bills and all that type of stuff, and people seeing what's happening and not stacking something in the middle of something and everyone else wants. There's a bunch of tricks that, by the way, politicians do. That's just the nature of the way they do it. Yeah, highlight it and try and change it. The one thing I always want to point out is what Matt Gaetz said during the whole battle with Kevin McCarthy. And what he said, Kevin McCarthy is about the swampiness of DC. See if this is what some of the concessions were that they were going through once he demanded these types of changes. Remember this?
Look, part of the groupthink of Washington, D.C. is you come here and you've just got to give the lobbyists your vote card and the leadership your calendar and everything will be okay. Kevin McCarthy has no ideology. Even his own supporters would admit that in private. He is simply a vessel through which lobbyists and special interests operate. So it's not that we're not being team players, it's just that my team are the people in Florida who sent me here to fight for them. My team is not the assembly of groupthink that occurs inside the swamp. We got to drain this swamp. We shouldn't put one of the alligators in charge.
Anti-swamp Congressman Matt Gaetz. He's saying truth right there. Lobbyists coming in, forcing people to do certain votes because they pay them enough, because they want to continue to have that same job of being bought off by lobbyists and those interests. Very true. Have you heard Matt Gaetz talking about that ever since? Have you heard Matt Gaetz going around touting the victory he's gotten over Kevin McCarthy and how Kevin McCarthy has agreed to dismiss lobbyist money to make sure we pass some legislation that makes sure we eliminates this money from politics and these bribes that happen from lobbyists and other rich folks that make politicians do their bidding? Is he still on that line? It's weird how no matter how virtuous these politicians get, once it comes down to who's giving them the money across the board, they're all in agreement. Well, let's stop there. We're still gonna take the money, and that changes votes no matter what. No matter what side of the aisle you are, it goes to whoever it is that's paid them enough. And lobbyists pay Democrats, lobbyists pay independents, and lobbyists pay Republicans. They'll say it when they're fighting, but they won't do anything about it. That's why you have to pay attention to what they're doing and not just what they're saying. He'll keep saying those things. Yeah, last thoughts, yes, before we move on.
Yeah, even Obama was against all the lobbying that goes on in Washington. That was one of his big campaign promises, that he was going to kind of curb lobbying in Washington. I don't think he was able to do that. I don't know how he would be able to do something like that. But in this case, in the very rare defense of Matt Gaetz that I will make, he did actually answer Geraldo's questions. And then Geraldo was like, "You're filibustering." He's like, "No, I just answered your question." So if I had to pick a winner, I'm not gonna say it, but
there's no winners here. I'm not gonna force you to just pick the sides, but I'm right down the middle too. I like to shove them both away from each other.